Yeah, just crack on, start the thingy.
Okay, we're on.
Just a couple of ones just to make you aware of. There was a drop, I think it was yesterday,
Yeah.
for Llama 3.1.
Yeah, I saw that Llama 3.1, 400,
Yeah,
400 billion parameters.
yeah, but I've been working with the 8 billion one, and it's pretty damn good.
Do you like the shape of it? Like, do you
The
like
shape.
the shape? Like, I see the benchmark results; they're all pretty good.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
for
yeah,
example,
yeah.
4O Mini has this. It's like the taste of its responses is that's not benchmarked, but you know
Yes,
what I mean? Like it makes
yeah,
sense what it says.
yeah. The 405. Yeah, sure. Actually, it's pretty much 4.0 mini or 4.0.
Oh, it's at that level.
But the thing I'm most impressed by is the 8B, which is very very
The little
small.
one. Yeah, the little
Yeah,
one. So that would run on like a desktop basically, hey?
right. Yeah,
So
and or on a device that a driver takes out with them and so on.
yeah. Or a
Um,
tank.
but it's really good for answering really simple questions really fast.
Okay. So someone else also using the previous model of Llama managed to produce an a function calling version that
Hmm.
surpassed 4.0 in the correctness of the function calling, which is
Oh,
quite a
oh,
remarkable
I didn't
thing.
see that. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Plus,
Yeah,
Elon Musk's company XAI released their model the other day
yeah,
again for
I saw
free.
it.
Um,
Yeah.
so, well, okay, this is cool. Fun times.
Well, the interesting thing is, OpenAI has gone down the closed source regulatory capture route. So they're in Washington D.C. trying to make all sorts of rules. I never thought I'd ever hear me say this, but Meta's doing a brilliant job of basically stopping that.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
that's why OpenAI
really
was
interesting.
founded was to be a counterweight to Google and DeepMind and those other
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Um,
Zuckerberg's totally shafting them. Now, this, yeah, okay, so it's open source, and they say you can run it on one server. I doubt if you can run it on anything other than a
like an
server so
H100.
large and humming that it looks like deep thought.
Right.
But
Well, a lot of those things you can actually strip off a bunch of parameters once you understand your problem space. You can
yeah,
understand which parts of the model never get called, and you can strip those out.
yeah, yeah,
70B that'd run on one H100,
yeah,
and
yeah,
8B. I mean, like you say, 8B would just be balls though.
yeah. It would run on your laptop.
Mm.
And if you add in agentic into there and self-correcting and so on, and
Mm.
yeah, I don't think they've got fine tuning for Llama 3.1 yet, but I think
I think
it's
they
in
do
the
because they
it's in
opened.
the back.
I think they released all of their weights and biases as well. So they
They did,
made it
yeah, that's
available
right.
to be trained
Yeah.
further or fine tuned. So yeah, this was the letter from Zuckerberg. That was seemed
Oh, I
pretty good.
missed this. What did this say?
This
This
is
is his comments on this.
yeah, this is him dropping this model and being like, this is it must have taken them tens, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars worth of training
Well,
time if
I
you
think I
account for the
heard the
hardware.
number. I don't know if this is number right, but it's like 16,000.
16,000 H100s have been running for
Yeah,
about half a year to train this model. So,
which is not cheap, right?
no, no, that's
So
actually expensive as shit.
yes,
Yeah, but I don't know. It's interesting to see why they're talking about, the sort of comparing to 4.0 and all that. So,
yeah. I mean, what they're trying to do, obviously, they'll make their money back because he's no dummy. He makes money back on the business ecosystem. And so the question really comes in. I see that their API is all over the place. Actually, it's very fragmented. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the API I've been dealing with on OpenAI's side, so it is not much better. It's actually a bloody
all right,
nightmare. So,
yeah.
because OpenAI has been got stuck in this weird place where they kind of want to hang on to some state, like this. The initial function calls. It was like every call was all your messages, and then it's like make the next message in this array. But
Yeah.
here with the assistance API, which I'm moving us to, they want to hold the thread on their side, and then they'll do the scoping or the chunking of the thread,
All right. All right.
right? And
Okay.
and which is sort of okay, but the issue is, or the difficulty is, managing all that state using just REST calls is a it's
Mm.
clunky.
Mm.
It's clunky. But anyway, I made our first assistance call probably about 15 minutes ago. It was the
Mm.
cheese emoji. So um,
The cheese emoji.
the cheese emoji.
And there it is.
Yeah.
Right enough.
And so this is an example of what the additional instructions parameter gives us. So
Mm-hmm.
it just tacks it on to the sys prompt with the time. I'll give it things like the user operating system, the browser, the user time zone, user locale, and then it
Yep.
can sort of help um, make it just understand a bit more context, because a lot of
Yeah.
questions relate to today, like when's the
Mm-hmm.
next blah blah blah, and how long since, and all these other kinds of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that context. So okay. So we're what the cheese emoji? Explain that. Sorry.
This is just this is a test fixture, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
agent fixture, and this is what it is. So this is the agent that gets created.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do some. I take a hash of the config file that was used to make the agent, plus the hash of the tools that were used at the time,
Mm-hmm.
because if I change the isolate tools or the isolate API without changing, and you don't change the assistant, you'll end up running a stale version. And so I need
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that it's always fresh.
Yep.
And so, for example, you can see these functions here. These are functions that got added based on the isolates that were made available to it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where now in this interface you'll be able to go in and see what the parameters. This is an extension of prompt engineering, is these function descriptions, because that description and the way you name your parameters and give descriptions of these parameter properties, those influence the model's choices quite heavily as well. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, so I don't yet have a good way for you to program or prompt or experiment with the prompts of the functions here. So we'll have to, jiggle that around and see how we go. But because that, I
I'm
define that.
assuming everything's in the description. The rest are, it is what it
No,
is.
you can have. So there's the description, and then there's the properties. Each of the properties can have a description too. So like if I called ping locally with the parameter
All right. Okay.
P1, P1 would
Yeah.
also have a description, and that gets interpreted by the model too.
Mm-hmm.
So there is quite a bit to deal with there. Yeah, we'll just have to wing it and see how we go, basically. Um, yeah.
Okay. All
So
right.
anyway, that's that. Do you have more to comment on the state of the industry?
No, no,
No.
that's
Okay.
pretty fundamental actually.
Yeah.
The day that open source outcompeted closed source.
Closed.
Um,
Yeah, I know it's not over yet, and
no, 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 no. Of course, because it's just been compared with photo, and
mm,
we've got five coming through the
five's coming
pipes.
fast, man. Five's coming
Yeah.
in a couple of months. We should get a first taste of five. Okay, so shall we go through this user interface?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was what I was panicking is a strong word, but I was very, very nervous that we may have hit the uncanny valley because this was the first time that our regular users got to see the new
Yeah, and you're
chat-based
saying that
interface.
they didn't really know what to say.
They were
Which,
kind of like it was
yeah,
just sort of they were like dumbfounded, and I think they maybe also weren't very familiar with AI in general, so it's like they hadn't really seen, you know, G-
yeah,
GPT 3.5 was sort of not even on their radar, and then here we are with,
yeah, yeah. Fair
yeah.
one, but they came back with stuff that's actually useful. So, what's your thoughts now? Are
Well,
they starting to get it?
I was very worried that they were like, oh, here, we need these buttons and stuff, but um, I had a chat to them, and what I need to figure out with you is how to make this work. So I think that there's just hang on a second. I'll pull up the diagram.
Which is a very traditional diagram.
Dude, it
As
was a
in,
great diagram. I don't know why more people don't do wire sketches like that.
yeah,
Hang on, I'm just trying to not expose all my data while at the same time still kind of seeing.
I mean, it's almost clear enough that you could take a photograph of it and stick it through an AI to create a bunch of React components, and away you go.
Almost, hey?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay,
So all this
can you
seemed
see that?
reasonable. Yeah. All this seemed reasonable, but you're saying about incremental search and incremental
Yeah, so that's
geo.
the curly one. Um, Previously on the blockchain system, I deployed for them with that with the Interbit prototype. Sorry, not Interpulse, the Interpulse prototype. My bad word slip.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the data was always stored in the browser, I
Mm-hmm.
could do this incremental search where like you're searching and as you're typing, like if I'm searching for the customer Mary, I go MAR, and then it sort of shows everything that possibly could be there,
Mm-hmm.
and so isn't that's not the same because now all the data's sitting in the cloud deployment. So doing that um, rapid live searching is not as
Mm-hmm.
straightforward. And there was two ways to do it. You
Okay.
you may think of some others, of course, but the first is we fire up a stateboard widget.
Mm-hmm.
That widget has access to all of the files in the deployment or an indexed version of them. As you type in the stateboard, it just shortlists the ones that you might mean. When you click one, it then generates a prompt that says select customer, unambiguous string here, enter, and then from that point on, now you're dealing with the customer record
Mm-hmm.
in the chat thread, but you
Yeah.
use the stateboard tool to rapidly locate the customer.
Yep.
So that's one way. The other
Mm-hmm.
way is that we could, again in the stateboard, but possibly in the chat, be firing off very quick AI calls that are trying to do effectively the same thing, but because speed is an issue here,
Sorry, I've
I
got my
think
headphones on, and the BBC just tried to give me a update. Sorry, I missed that last part.
the BBC just tried to give you an update.
Yeah, I've got my headphones on. You know uh, the jingle that they play when they're just giving you a notification.
All right. Um, yeah, actually, now that I say it out loud, it sounds pretty stupid to do live AI calls to try and give you that.
No, that'd be an expensive way of doing it.
So
Surely there's
I
a
guess I
way
just
to index and have
yeah, well,
an agent to
yeah, it's
type
starting
it
to
in
feel like
index.
an index that's not an index like you traditionally do on a file system, but an AI generated index where the AI is summarizing it in a way that makes it easily vector searchable, or I don't know what the word is for it, but searchable in reverse, like
Yeah.
searchable when I'm looking for something. It's like the Jeopardy thing. Like you make the statement as a question to make it easier to find when you've got a question. Um,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
so
And
that kind of thing.
uh, a vector store sounds like a reasonable way of doing that.
Mm,
Um, you have to obviously keep it up to date, but that's a background process, so that's
yeah,
doable.
it's sort of, it might just be that it's actually part of Artifact Core. Like at the root of each branch is this system of generating a shadow of the whole file system that is summaries
Mhm.
of the files, and that's what's used as the indexing component, maybe. Um, yeah,
Hmm. Um, it seems like there should be a solution here, isn't there?
yeah. I think it might just be as simple as because I could even pull down all the customer records into the browser. It probably wouldn't be that big. It'd probably be about um hang on, let me just think with my slow meat brain. It'd be about a gigabyte to pull down.
That sounds like a quite a heavyweight way of doing it.
Um,
Um,
no, wait, sorry, with probably about 10 megabyte if I was
all right. Okay.
judicious about it. So that's not terribly bad, but it's not terribly great either.
Yeah.
Um, I
Um,
could build a dedicated index that was made for this purpose, that was triggered to run every time a customer record changed, and it was just a big text file that was smushed full of all the keywords within the customer records.
um, yeah, and give me an example of how it would be used. I mean,
The example is that a customer rings up. The customer's angry. They're in a hurry, and the line's bad. They
yep.
they ring up. They don't know their customer number.
Hmm.
They use their name that's like not the name associated with the account. They don't know their street number exactly because they might have just moved, but somehow the operator needs to be able to ask some questions to figure out decisively which customer this is, and that's why they need that speed, because
Because they're
the
angry on the phone.
well, that they're in a hurry and they don't
Yeah.
know the information, and so they kind of need to smash in a bunch of different things. And why this problem is very interesting is that fundamentally the AI model has been based that we've got is based on request response, like it's
Hmm.
turn based. But
Hmm.
this query is not turn based. This is a continuous sort of a rapid flow thing, and so it's not like, here, consider all the options. Now what will you do? It's more like like it's like a rain of just randomness to try and
Right.
get down.
So the person on the truck company side
Right.
would be given a whole bunch of possibly inaccurate information.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is to hone down on the right information.
That's right. And the thing is, it can't really be an AI call, because the AI call, each time you add a little bit more information, you got to wait for the response. And even if it was as quick as a second, that's still not
Ooh.
fast enough, right? Because it's like, well, if you type
It would
in,
be relatively easy to do if you're willing to wait 2 3 seconds.
Would it though? Because if you were looking for someone called Amanda Butterworth and the person on the phone said Mandy or something, and you started typing man, like you'd sort of want, you want to.
Yeah, Harley
I just
Quinn.
can't see how an AI based system could solve that particular lookup problem.
I'm not but given that predictive has got to do with what you've already um, typed in
Right.
and your current context, but doesn't really, if you typed an M and it immediately came up with Mark Zuckerberg.
Mm.
Only knew that because you typed it in previously on a search.
Right.
But if someone phones in, you might have never talked to this person for 6 months.
Right.
So it's not going to know. So even a traditional way of doing it um,
Now
is
the
not going.
traditional way works quite well, because I gave them I gave them a version that I basically took every customer record they had, so about 10K customer records, and then I took every value in there. So like none of the labels of the data, like name,
Mhm.
address, and all that, but just the contents, just the raw contents, so that if they typed in anything that even partially matched on any of those fields, it would show you the list of customers that there was a hit on.
Yeah, but what you're talking about, though, that would be fine if the information you're getting is accurate. But if
Mm.
someone had an address of 123 Stable Street um, and gave you 223 Stable Street, but actually meant 123, you're going to get lots of returns for one because it's going to match with all the ones. You're going to be down the wrong rabbit hole. And it's like, so it's like 223 Stable Street as a whole string is closer to 123 Stable Street than it is or should be to 101 some other street. So traditionally, it's like let's match everything on your first character, and you can do that really fast, of course. It's just an indexing thing. But if the first character is wrong, then you're down this rabbit hole, and then you put the next one in. It's like, okay, then we're
Right.
chunking
Yeah.
down, chunking
So
down, chunking
in that
down,
case,
but you're chunking down the wrong place.
but how would an AI call help you with that?
Um, it would be able to the thing if if you were to allow it to let's put in all the information you've got. Okay, so Mrs. Miggins at 123 Stable Street is phoning and is angry.
Yeah.
There's more than one bit of information there. It's not just the first character. So say if she got our street completely wrong, um, you can still get something close to it. It's like, well, okay, so we know Stable Street, even though it comes later in the string. It's like, okay, so who do we know in Stable Street? It's probably her. Maybe there's two or three, and it's like, sorry, ma'am, can I ask your name? It's like, Miggins. Okay, even if she gets her own name wrong,
Or it
it'll
gets
be able to
misheard
get
wrong
close.
or mistyped.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So,
So what's the execution flow you're suggesting? Every time there's a new character, I make an AI call.
no, every time there is a string in natural language of new information in order to like chunk down to exactly where it is. So, for example, if someone phones up and going, "I'm really angry. I'm at Stable Streets." Okay, right. Let's get everything Stable Street, but also maybe it's Table Street. Maybe you heard it wrong.
Right.
And so it's similar, and it's like, oh, you've got a whole bunch of options here, and saying maybe listed by the names. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, but
sorry, sorry, man, can
when
you give
did
me
the
the name?
function call? How did that get compiled? Are you saying there was an
Um,
indexing step that sort of vectorized all the customer records first?
I think it would be as easy as that. So if we constrain it
Oh,
to
it's
just
easy
the
like that.
customers, yeah, it's like we've already got all the customers in plain text. We can do a very fast small model saying, right, someone is saying that I'm on a street. even that, it's like, so then you immediately discard all the roads and lanes and all that kind of thing. It's like, oh, we've
Right.
got 100 streets. And it's like, you need to ask more information. That would be straightforward to do in AI and wouldn't rely on. Oh, give me 2 secs. I've got a knock at the door. Hey, back. Yeah, so the point I'm making is AI is much better at kind of vectorizing a whole bunch of slightly wrong information. So if you had a really bad telephone line, and it's like, is it Mrs. Miggins or is it Mrs. Niggins?
Okay, so here's another
So,
option. This company has this. This is Algolia. They do AI-based search as a service. I could insert them in to the state board. So when you land in the state board, it's this loads in an iframe effectively. Because, for example, the JavaScript registry, which I love, is they incorporated that search here. So if I search for this thing, oh, actually, sorry, they used someone else. Anyway, but they don't bother doing all that searching themselves. And these are the guys that made Deno and the whole Deno deployment stack. So for whatever reason, they chose to use this external service that was just integrated into their site. And so we could integrate that too. And then
How do they do it? What are they doing in the background?
I think they just need to be ingested, have your data be ingested.
Yeah, but the data is going to be changing like every minute or every hour or every day.
Yeah, but that's fine. Index updates 500 per month.
Yeah, but on any reasonably sized company, even 10,000 a month. I mean, how many times size, 20-person company updating their back end is quite quickly gonna.
Quite
I'm
quickly
sure
going to
they've
be
done it
stale.
well, but it's gonna top out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Unless you
true.
get the limited enterprise one.
True.
It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
let's
just
talk.
the things. It's just that I just don't want to do any work. If that makes
No,
sense, like.
I think you can do this in an agent because we've got all the bits there, right?
Right.
So we've got a complete stack of all your data in text. You got a complete stack of the logs that are available,
Right.
and we've got the the logic around the system prompt to pull out the or get near misses quite quickly. The only thing that wouldn't do is to beat your requirement for less than 1 second or we
Okay.
could call it every character, but it's like typing something and then
So what I'm hearing from you is that we need to vectorize the records somehow, and then have a vector-like search that's run by an agent.
I think so. I think
Right.
we can do that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So.
I mean,
So
to start with,
would you,
if
yeah,
we can
but like,
plug
so
in.
would you start, so say you're typing and you're typing Higgins, would I be like, I'd go I'd wait like half a second to see if there were any more characters, and then as soon as I got a little bit of a pause, I'd be like, go. And then that did the first call, and then while they're still typing, then I'd do another one, and then as they keep typing, I'd do another one until ultimately, like I'm constantly hitting
It
the
it
agent.
it depends. It depends on how um, uh, and you're closer to this. How important is it to get uh, a very long list of really shitty answers when you've typed M versus
No,
you
it's
type up the whole
the
thing
length of the
and then
list is
go
unimportant. It's the quality of the list that matters. And so if we were also able to rank it based on like most recently called, or like we could rank that list based on some meaningful parameters that give us a better result, I think.
well, if we're indexing, or sorry, not indexing, wrong word. If we're emphasizing quality results, then what it suggests is we do it on the same kind of prompt and response thing. So you type in, I think it's Niggins Street, boom, and that will give you, because that will go away, and you're not dealing with the fact that it's actually Miggins, but you type Niggins on the first
Yeah.
character. It would go
Yeah.
and get something
So
closer, and then come back, and then you go, right, now I've got a search space. It's like, then you can ask
yeah,
questions if you're on a phone call, right?
but
It's like,
that's not like that can't happen in the chat window, I don't think. Like it needs to be a stateboard widget that does that.
yeah,
Would would you agree
um,
or what?
it'd be nicer.
It'd be nicer as the stateboard, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
because
then it
otherwise, if you've got lots, because what we're asking is put in the really shitty information that you've got now,
yeah.
and we'll give you back a shitty result.
Yeah, and then our
And
interface
then,
would then ask you to retype your next shitty information piece,
right,
you
and then
know?
it'll close down the window.
Yeah,
But
and it would
also,
sort of the chat based back and forth does not fit for that. Like it's bad for
no,
that rapidly
you
narrowing
could,
down.
if you put in, I have, there's a customer on the phone, and you just get a whole list of customers. It's like pointless.
Right. Yeah, right. Plus the because it's in this streaming conversation, we can't show like 5,000 records because it's like the interface isn't
Yeah,
made
yeah,
for
and
that.
it would take forever to go all the
Yeah.
way
Okay,
down.
so I'll tell
And
you
it's
what,
like,
how about um
this is a really gnarly, interesting problem. I like
dude,
this.
I tell you, like these guys, like they have this. It sounds like a simple business, but I swear to goodness, if you can master their use case,
Yeah,
everyone looks like them. Everyone.
yeah.
So, okay, here's the thing that. Let me just run you through a proposal that I have to make.
Okay.
I will, every time a customer record gets updated, I will run it through the embeddings endpoint in OpenAI and I'll generate a vector for the customer record.
Yep.
I will then store that in the file system,
Mm-hmm.
probably in the indexing portion of the system or indexing layer. So it's basically just a special folder that has these vector files in it. Then I will make a stateboard element that looks like this. Oh, sort of. They did that on purpose. That looks like this. It's just a big search bar inviting you to type stuff, and you type in Miggins, and every time you hit a character, I will call your agent so that you could.
How about every time you hit white space?
No,
Because that's
no.
because well, this is the
What?
point I was thinking.
Why are you against me making multiple calls?
Because if you were right, if you were to type in MIG,
Yeah,
um, say if this was indexing everything, you
yeah,
could have everything from migration in the UK to Soviet airplanes.
yeah. But what's the issue with that? Like, I'll just grab the top four.
because it's not interesting until you hit
So
white
what?
space. You've not finished your thought.
No, wrong. It might be.
Okay.
It might be. You know how when you use a machine a lot, you learn that there's a special type of, like, if I put in this particular string, I can get to a particular customer as the first result, even though, based on your theory, that would also match a large number
All
of
right.
things.
Here's what. Yeah. Okay.
All I'm getting at, and I think that
Yeah.
I'm strongly right here, is
Okay.
that
Strongly right. Oh, not
strongly
just
right.
right.
No,
Very,
not
very
just
right.
right.
Okay.
Very, very right.
Yeah.
Is that if let's assume that these results are simply showing the most recent AI call that finished. And so there's literally no harm firing it off as soon as I
Basically. Yeah.
can, and then I just replace it every time the AI thing comes back. Because who cares?
True. Okay. Okay. All right. That
Right?
would be more responsive and it would feel more real. But for example, to my far less right as this, if you type in, I've got a concept in my head now, and type in T, just the letter T. R A F G.
What are we going to get to a point? What are we doing? What are we doing?
Right. I've got. I was putting in Trafalgar, right, and we've got a whole bunch of wasted time and effort.
No,
We
man.
put
Like
into.
we're not. I don't need to wait for the AI call to complete before you can type the next character. You can just be typing as fast as you can, and I'll be sending off requests as quickly as I can, and then I'll just show there's no order. Like, I'll forget about the older ones, and so basically I'll complete the AI query with whatever you meant to complete saying the fastest. Like, it'll be near instant.
Yeah, it just seems very heavyweight because take that
It's not.
string there,
It's not.
whatever that was.
It's not.
How many, you'd be sending off one call per character.
Dude, we can make 1,000,000 of them for 60 cents. Do you care?
Good point, well made.
God damn it.
Care more
Okay.
about, okay, all right.
Yeah, all right. 60 cents for 1,000,000 goddamn token. No one
Yeah,
cares about the price
right,
anymore.
okay. I'll concede that you're right. I don't think you're very, very right, but I think you're right.
Okay, all right. We'll work on that.
Yeah.
So that's the making AI calls option. The other
Well, for the
option.
time being, albeit that I was saying that the number of times we would have to re-ingest into an external system is going to be quite high based on any time that the canonical data is changed.
Yeah.
And I think, they went up to 10,000 and then it's like, give us a call. I hate that.
Yeah.
It's like, enterprise, give us a call. It's like, oh, well, we're going to shaft you.
Yeah.
For
All
the
right.
time
Well,
being, we can
yeah.
plug that in.
And the other option is that I could, so long as I can find a way for it to be reusable, I can build an index server side. The client can download that index when the state board loads, and then the search is just being calculated browser side, showing the shortlist as you type using vector search running in the browser, which is actually very good and very fast. The
Okay.
thing that's hard is to generate the vector in the first place, but then to find the closest vector is very easy.
Yeah, so it's a ratio between searches and writes. And reads and writes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so why don't I do that? And because the reason I'm hesitant is because I need to make sure that this component is reusable, and I'm not falling into the old trap of just making a component that's just for them. But having a widget that lets you vector search a bunch of records to quickly locate them and uses an AI to help sort of smudge around the edges that you might be, you know, to help you be better.
Yeah.
Sounds like a reusable thing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, up to the point where we hit the need for sharding, etc. But we're not even close to that yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think just talking to you, you convinced me that like running it in the chat, there's no way that we can run it in the chat stream. It has to be a state board component anyway.
Yeah.
And then, and so let me just check though. What I'm going to do is when a result comes up that the human likes, they click on it, and when they click on it, all it's gonna do is generate a prompt that says uh, load customer, just so that it's like unambiguous completely.
Yeah. It's going to take the payload and then just
And
talk to
then
the right
all it
agent.
does is it just prompts
No, you're
it.
talking about that.
It
Yeah.
just goes prompt, and then that's all that the state board does. The state board doesn't engage in anything more other than allowing you to rapidly narrow down what the thing is that you're looking for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it should be a rollback because it might be ambiguous. You might have two that both seem plausible. So, you click
Yeah,
on
so
one,
we'd
you ask a
basically
question. It's like,
prompt
are you in? Yeah,
we'd prompt with the primary key, right?
yeah,
Like once we've used the widget to determine what the primary key that the customer agent wants to load, then we'd call the prompt with the primary key, which is unambiguous.
yes. However, I was thinking more on the custom agent side. So, say if there's a bunch of uh, data that's all slightly wrong, and it comes back with two options, and you
Mm.
click on one,
Yeah,
what the next thing the custom agent is going to do is just to clarify. It's like, oh, are you on State Street, or are you on, you know, on State
yeah,
Avenue?
right. Yeah, right.
And then it's
And
like, oh, and
right,
then you
but
go back.
the state board widget would still be there, so they could just click the next one and it would just go load blah blah blah. So you could sort of load them up fairly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if it just stays there, and it's like, because probably if say it's a really bad line or
Yeah.
whatever, um, uh, the probably there's going to be some interaction with the customer just to clarify, just to make sure you are on State Street, right?
Right.
No, I'm on State Avenue. So, oh, right, yep, got you.
Right. Okay. Yeah, all right. So it looks like we're making a stateboard widget that helps you search. It uses vector searching of some kind or other, and then we'll just figure out how to scale that as needed if the performance sucks or not.
Yeah,
And then when you click it, it just preloads a prompt that is unambiguous, and then from that point on, you're working with the customer not in the state board but in the chat, right? Because
yeah,
we don't really want to be loading customer records in the state board, because the state board should be there for like complicated shit like the search, like routing on the map. Like the state board should really be reserved for very special cases. Like I don't want to be trying to show the customer record in the state board, because why?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And originally we were talking about the State Board being only two things: complex information where you
Mm-hmm.
need to look like a map,
Mm-hmm.
or actions. Like, do you really want to do this?
Mm,
So you're committal.
not you really want to do this, but complex expressions that you can't do in natural language, like for example, sorting a list is not easily done. Um, Getting a GPS location, you can't do that with just chat. You need to have a map and then touch it. Um,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But there is this. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
say
that's why
again. Yeah.
this is quite a nerve wracking time, because it's like making sure that you know, like the people that have to use it actually don't give us a
What do they
curly
really?
problem.
So why did they highlight search?
They really value that speed of being able to find a customer.
And what do they mean by speed? Milliseconds, seconds, minutes? Not minutes, obviously, but what speed is it, like less than
Fractions
two and
of
a
a
half
second.
seconds? Google search speed,
Google
or
search speed, yeah. Google search speed.
right? Okay, so Google search is like generally speaking 1.5 seconds, isn't it? But the predictive text is I don't know 1 or 200
They don't care about
milliseconds.
that level, but Google search, yeah. And
Okay,
they really valued that the continuous search. That's what they found very useful.
interesting. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. Hmm.
Because
Okay.
there's a lot going on when a customer calls. The customer really wants to get off the phone, but they
Mm-hmm.
need some information from them. And so sort of the more pleasant we can make that for the agent, the better for us. And that's why the continuous search is
Of
valuable.
course, we could pre-populate it if someone's phoning from a phone and the phone
Yeah,
number
I
is in the
know.
customer record.
I know, but
Then
we
that
don't have that now. That's the issue. Like, ideally, we'd be tapping the phone voice stream and transcribing that so that we're actually one step ahead of the
yeah.
agent. And the final step will be we can actually talk back to them in about a year or so, and they won't even know. But whatever. We just don't have that right now. That's why we need to deal with this
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. So what's the plan then? To put in that tool for now, which seemed very responsive and very quick, and just
The
the ingest
plan is
information.
that I will make up a mocked up story of the state board. You and I
Mm-hmm.
need to figure out how we're going to trigger the state board. Like, how do you get the long thread to decide it's time to show the search button in the
Mm-hmm.
state board? That's what we have to figure out for prompting.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing that I need to talk to you about is buttons. And you touched
Mm-hmm.
on it in the state board. I disagree with what you're saying. The state board should not be for affirmative action buttons. Affirmative action buttons should be in band, in chat, I think.
Oh, okay. That's just a location thing. No, I'm quite happy with that.
Okay.
What I was saying was affirmative actions shouldn't be in natural language.
Uh,
Um,
right, but that said, when I asked them about that, they actually don't want to have to confirm. They want to
no,
just look at it, make their changes, and then they'll deal with it if it's wrong, as opposed to confirming that it's
okay.
right.
Oh,
That's what they
that's
want.
curious. Well,
Yeah,
in that case,
this is why
that's
this is a
easier.
fun time, because all these
Yeah,
things that we thought should be there, they're like, fuck no.
don't
Right?
bother. Just do it.
Yeah,
Just fucking do it. Okay.
yeah. Now the issue that I wanted to talk to you about is one that um, is going to need a lot of skills. What did you do with my PDF? Oh, here.
Hmm?
So search we've dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Edit, edit. I talked to them on the phone and was like, well, you know, is it okay? So this thing will show up as a markdown file. Edit is just saying new phone number, blah, new name, blah. You know, like just typing it in
One
as
sec.
chat.
I got search, but they've got a button for edit instead of just saying
Yeah,
change
So
Megan's to
this is the
Nicholas.
diagram they sent, and then I had a call with them about this diagram. So search we can consider dealt with. Edit, they wanted to be able to edit it, but actually they're comfortable with being able to chat in the edits. And the reasoning I gave is I was like, look, even if I gave you a form to fill out, you're still going to be typing stuff in. So why not just type it in the text anyway? And, you know, they were okay with
Yeah,
that.
it's like Yeah, I mean,
But here's an interesting thing. You can ignore
mm,
that was just a logo. I don't know. That's just a logo. But the interesting thing to take note of is that they wanted some buttons that had some canned actions or some common actions to save time. So one of the most
mm,
common things that um, people ring up for is to cancel their next service. Like,
mm.
so this button, I think, should be like it should show up in the chat stream, and it
Mm-hmm.
should be just like how ChatGPT starts you off, where it
Mm-hmm.
goes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, where it has these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would make these buttons, and the issue I come to you with is that you need to figure out how to generate the text in the message that I can interpret as a prompt or as a button. That's the trick. That's the issue,
Ah, okay.
right?
So it would be something like, well, even if we went with like a HTML way, button contents action.
Yeah, I'd prefer it to be a link, like a markdown link.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think you'll find that that's easier.
Would the address be on that? That's also possible.
Well, if you,
Uh,
because for example, if you did a markdown link that said cancel service, and then the link was to, and I told you it was like going to be like relative slash prompt slash, um, and then I said
Proves you
cancel
can. Yeah, proves you can.
cancel the service of the current customer. Um,
Would you pass variables into that? So would you say cancel the service and then pass in
it should have it
customer?
from context, I would imagine. But again, we got to test it. All I'm saying is that I think a markdown link is one easy way. So long as it starts with slash prompt, I can detect it and turn it into a button. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
if you try to make it use HTML, then it,
Oh no, I wasn't worrying about it. It was basically just a well formatted way of doing it, as in
yeah,
not natural language necessarily,
yeah.
or
So
not
it just
literally.
needs some markup. It just needs any kind of structure that I can detect and turn it into a button when I see it.
Yeah.
And so,
So how do we do that then? So
so here's one
basically,
idea. You could make a compound message response where like part of the message came back from the agent, and then there was a
mm,
separate call that went out and came back and populated that bottom row of buttons. And its job was dedicated to making buttons, and then I will stitch the two of them together. And that can cover you
mm-hmm,
for your affirmative action. Sorry,
mm-hmm.
not affirmative action. The the confirmations thing that you've
Yeah.
wanted, because it's basically saying that within the message window, we're going to reserve a tiny little pane down the bottom that lets you generate buttons that represent something
So
affirmative.
so you look back over the part of the context window, however we want to chunk it,
Yeah.
and then it would anticipate what possible things you'd want to do,
Well,
and then
that's a
produce a
more,
button to
yeah,
reply.
but that's a more flexible thing. These guys are asking for a specific thing. Like they want this button every time, right? They want that button every time. Now we could, make it dynamic and generate some extra buttons and detect what frequency people do what actions next and things like that. But just to start, they want these two buttons. Um,
So they're always on the screen, even if we're talking about
except
someone booking a call.
no, 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 no. They're only on the screen when you show the customer record. And the trick is that sometimes this button is not available because if the customer's account is overdue, like they haven't paid,
Yeah.
then you canceling the service is not an option. And so there needs to be some logic to decide, like the bot needs to decide whether or not it's going to show that button. And so it starts to take on a form of like a little bit of business rules for the presentation layer that's separate to the business rules for the operation of the system, but it's related somehow. So it knows about the same definitions that are in the enterprise, the entity relationship diagram. It knows about that knowledge, but it also has some extra rules that are presentation business rules of what the business wants to have as macros, or
So it'd be something like if the context is talking about a customer, display the markdown that you would then display the button for cancel.
yeah.
And then when you click that, then cancel that thing. That seems very specific. The whole point of NL is
This is the
deals
danger,
with
though. This is the
ambiguity, but this
danger,
is
right?
like,
When it gets specific to a specific customer, that becomes that's really the thing we're trying to avoid. And so this is our problem to solve. Thankfully, there's no other problem. Like, of all the problems that they could have hit us with, this is it.
Yeah, it's just how to do it in that in a way that
Isn't specific to them.
we just couldn't just as easily make a React component and just do it.
Right. So what? Tell me then, where in the entity relationship diagram there are certain things that you might call actions, right? Like if I'm in a customer, the business rules should surely state that I can only do a limited number of things, right? I can reschedule, I can cancel the service, I can do this and do that, right? And so those actions are the things that a button could be. And so, like...
Well, you could easily put in the business rule that if you're talking to a customer, then the customer agent has a button for cancel.
Well, what you could do is say, so there's business rules, but there's also like business hints, right? Like you could say that the majority of the time when a customer rings up, no,
you must or must not.
No, when you could say when the majority of customers ring up, they want to either cancel a service or skip a service. That's a hint. That's not a rule. And we could use those hints to select from all the possible things you could do to what you're most likely to do.
Oh, of course. I mean, well, they're heuristics, right? That's like
heuristics, business heuristics as opposed to business rules.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. I hadn't thought of that. That's really good. Why did I not think of that before? Yeah, that's good. That's really. Oh, that's sweet.
Right. So basically, there'd be this.
We have to do that right away. Yeah.
Okay. So there'd be this buttons panel. I think it's definitely safer to generate it separate to the main message, because that way it doesn't pollute the prompt or mess with it in any way. It's easier to get right, and it lets us isolate that piece. I think that actions panel would be generated.
I'm hearing an aircraft. Is that where you are, or it's where I am?
It's where you are, man. You're about to get bombed.
All right.
Putin's on his way, buddy.
Sounds like a Chinook. All right, 2 seconds.
Well, you do live in the
I think
barracks of the UK. So you get this composite message back that's been assembled from 2 different AI calls, where one was the button maker and the other was the actual message.
Yep. And we've also been talking about distinction between the state board and having in-band, as it were, buttons.
Yeah, because the in-band buttons, I'm quite convinced that all they do is they just populate the prompt and send it. They don't they don't they don't interact with data in any other way. They're really just natural language macros. And
Yeah.
what I would hope is that each user could chat to the system and have their own heuristics and their own preferences stored for them, so that the button maker, they can chat their way through the button maker with a bunch of their own private rules that aren't company wide, and say things like, if the customer starts with an A, then I want the button that plays a fart sound on my computer, or something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can do anything you want, is the point. But the company wide ones are ones that we'll set, and then each user should be able to just set their own ones.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to be able to chat with it. It's like you're having a chat with the preferences agent, where you're like, hey, preferences agent, every time that a customer shows, I want to add a new button. And it's like, sure, what do you want to do? Here's some suggestions based on all the things you could do. And you're like, no, I want a button that says I'm going to lunch, or a button that says I've had enough, goodbye, or anything you like, really. And then that gets stored in the user preferences. We then can analyze that and see if it should be hoisted to company preferences. If it's a time saver, we can look at what actions people are commonly doing and try to generate our own macros that turn up based on statistics, things like that.
So that would be something like a button preference would be something like, should this happen, and it
Yeah.
can be as woolly as you want,
Yeah.
then I want this to happen, which
Yeah.
is something really quite exact,
Yeah.
which potentially pulls information from the woolly as fuck stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it
And
gets it wrong, it's really not the end of the world, because it's still just going through the prompt, and the user can technically say anything. And so putting it through the
right,
prompt,
so for example, if I was in the prompt
yeah,
and I typed in cancel this motherfucker,
yeah,
you'd have a button that would come up because it has the word cancel and it knows the context. You want to cancel someone, and it might also give you, we don't have a customer called motherfucker. What's the name of the customer you want to cancel?
right,
And then you go, Mrs. Miggins, I've had enough. And then it's like, here's the button. That sort of thing.
yeah, something like that.
And that's doable. Based on a batch of predefined if this then that buttons. If I say something along this context,
Yeah,
woolly
like
stuff,
it's a big
then I
enough
want to do
task.
something this.
It's a big enough task that it warrants its own agent that specializes in it.
It's a really fascinating one.
It's a cool one, right?
I'm going to give this a go today, actually.
Okay, so what I'll do with that is I won't actually run it as an agent on the long thread. That will be a call to just a pure chat completion endpoint agent.
Yeah,
That's
because it wants to go through, and then you pass the thread over to the agent, and you get back a button.
I'm not going to pass the thread, because I don't want the thread history to be polluted by the button activity. I'm either going to make a separate thread or a copy of the thread, or just do a threadless completions call where I pass the last 5 messages or something.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I was meaning. So the initial thread stays untouched.
Yeah.
You give the context to the button decider.
Yeah.
And it goes, and then the button decider just puts back the button. It's like,
right, but all that's happening is I stitch it in the UI, but from the bot's point of view, the long thread agents don't even have any clue that there's buttons showing at all, and the button agent can't see the long thread, right? And then I merge it in the UI.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to get weirdness like you appear to be wanting to cancel all your customers, like you're having a bad day,
right, yeah,
Yeah,
right. And
so
it's like
we
that's
don't know
none
that.
of your, you know, the state
Yeah,
board. The state board is really only there to produce the next prompt in a way that you can't use natural language to do, like a GPS location, a resorted array, a rapidly searched, incrementally searched result, and you're like that one, and then it goes
mm.
into the prompt, and all it's really doing is trying to put. It's all about
Well,
everything goes through the prompt. Everything goes through the prompt. I think is the
yeah,
rule.
yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm really gonna.
It's
It's a
freaky
brilliant
stuff,
idea.
right? Like it's like these.
It's a brilliant idea, as in, I kind of got half an idea of how to do it, but it's
I know,
really
right?
fascinating to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so that sort of sounds like it works. Um,
yeah. I'll give that a go today. Actually, that sounds brilliant.
yeah,
Well, it sounds juicy.
I
Not
know.
not
Yeah.
brilliant
So
necessarily.
what I need from you is a prompt that can generate buttons, and then
Yeah,
I'll that. If you can prove that you can do that, I'm confident that we can just insert that
yeah.
as a
Um,
side hustle, like a
the
decoration.
I'm pretty confident I can do that by the end of today. The prompt might be a bit big because having to pass in the ERD context and the business rules and the button rules,
Do
but maybe
you
not.
though? Like, because
I don't know yet.
no.
I don't know
Well,
yet.
it sounds like you should say that anytime the ERD changed, you'd regenerate this short list of actions, and it's really just an extraction of the ERD that the button maker needs to
It would,
know about.
it would need to know about what a customer was.
Yeah, it needs
For example,
those basic
uh,
things, but it doesn't need
yeah,
everything. It doesn't need all the business rules. But you know, maybe it
no,
does, maybe it doesn't.
I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, cool. Right. Oh, nice juicy one. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain it, but you know, the more and more I think about long threading and I start building it into our system, the less and less problems I see with it. Like long threading with agent switching
Yeah.
is just there's not a lot
Nice,
you
isn't it?
can't do. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I've spent the last few days trying to find out where it fails. Haven't come up with anything particularly.
Yeah. Cool.
Um, yeah. I'll keep
So
trying
those
though. I'll
do we
keep
want to
trying.
go through those business rules, or you pretty much they get the exercise,
Um,
right?
well, the business rules should be arbitrary, so long as they're self consistent. It doesn't really matter what business rules are. It could be running
Yeah.
an airline, or it could be running, sewage works. It doesn't matter,
Right.
so long as they're self consistent. Um, I've not read through them. I mean, we can check through them in case there's any nuances that you got in your conversations that they haven't written down.
Right.
That might be useful.
Okay. Now, all right.
The
So I just
sorry.
want to add some extra feedback
Mm,
from when I was talking about this cancel button.
mm,
Um, it turns out that see what they wanted was over here. They wanted to say so. This message here is asking for a drop down calendar. So click it, a
mm,
calendar drops down. The calendar shows when the next possible collections for that location are, shows when the previous collections have been, and all that. And
mm,
it really helped me explain what the key problem with Interpulse was. Our previous blockchain design was that, okay, sure, we could make this back end logic that could be resilient and distributed and all these things. But as soon as you came to the front end, people ask for things like this, and you end up with like no one else on earth is going to want a calendar component like that, which means that
mm,
first of all, we can't pull
mm,
it in off the shelf for one,
mm,
and second of all, once we've gone through the arduous task of building it, we can't resell it or reuse it because no one else needs it. And so that's really the death of programming. And
mm.
so that stood in the way of us being able to rapidly deploy commercial applications. However, now that we have AI available as the interface, we can give them this and more because it's all.
Well, a drop down and a calendar, a drop down search, calendar, and so on is the same as a button in terms of what we've been talking about previously. So,
Yeah,
say if
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you did, you detected that someone's asked for what time, and then we can do that. Or clicking on it effectively is
Yeah.
a separate call.
But what came up in our discussion is that this button allows us to do so much more, because what you can do is click cancel, and then it can go, okay, I've canceled the service. The remaining balance of the customer is X. They are due a refund, or they owe us some money. Remember to ask how their dog is doing, because previously they phoned up and said their dog was sick, or like the button can come back with contextual intelligence as well as just the raw, it did its job, yes, but it can also do a whole bunch more, because it basically just triggers a system change, which opens it up to all kinds of intelligence to be added as well.
So that's a really good scenario. So you can't say skipped, let's say, rather than cancelled. You're skipped, and it would go, okay, skipped one. You've pop up calendar, which would be through Markdown, and you trigger it, and you go, okay, right, that's the next one. Talk on the phone, 24th, 25th. Yeah, go for the 25th. Bang, you hit it, and then you get the remember to say how's your dog doing, that
Right.
sort of thing. Is that the scenario?
Yeah, but additionally, it can be things like the next step in the sales cycle, like ask them about, arrange for their bin to be collected. Ask them how they, what are they doing with their green waste next. Like you can do much more business related things, sales related things, relationship repairing related things when they click that button. Like, say you got a new guy that just started as a customer service agent today, a 20-year-old, a customer of 20 years rings up and says, I want to cancel my service. That's a big fucking problem. Like, that should raise an alarm bell. You're like, oh my God, this is like loyalty plus, and now what's going on? If a normal system wouldn't treat that person any different, but we can code it in that it's like business rules are,
How do you you'd need to have oh, this is an interesting one. So we've got the long thread. That's
yeah,
great. That's just what you've been doing.
right,
But it includes information, say, for a customer agent. It's centered on the customer agent. What's the customer agent been doing?
right.
There's a way, well, it's straightforward really, to keep a history of NL comments about a customer as part of the customer record.
Yeah, that's another
And it's
entity in the customer record.
right,
So
but
here's
it's
here's
like,
the here's the
yeah,
interesting thing that came out of today.
yeah,
The history button was asked for, and I was like, okay, why do you want a history button? And they were like, oh, we need to see everything that's happened before. And I'm like, okay, why? Like, they're like, well, we need to see things like how many times have they cancelled a service this year, because we only allow them 6 cancellations in any 12-month period. And I was like, right, so we could decide that the cancel button can't be added, because it should be coded in the business rules that you can only have X number of cancellations per
right.
time
So
period.
when you call the cancel button, you need to know which customer you're talking about. Otherwise, you're going to cancel the wrong person. To then look at the context of the person and look at the business rules saying whatever it was, and cancel more than 6 times in a year, whatever it
Mm,
was. But also could do the other direction. It's like in the sales funnel, or the upselling thing. It's like
mm,
how many times have we tried to upsell, and let's not overdo it here.
yeah,
But you can also say, 2 months ago we talked about this new service. You want to cancel this? Mm, You know,
mm.
like
So
reconsider
look, let
that.
me let me just quickly show you a feature that
Okay.
I want to hint at with you.
hmm
Um, Watch closely.
Okay.
This
Watching
is a
closely.
magic button that Chrome has added that gives you AI-powered debugging of errors that have appeared in the console.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
click
It's
it,
like a co-pilot kind of
and
thing.
what happens is very interesting. Watch this. Generating explanation. Okay, cool. But watch it grows.
Oh, so it's got multiple calls. Either that
It's
or it's just.
adding. And so what I'm suggesting we do is you first of all you got the go find the custom agent record part, right? That pops up. But then you could
Mhm.
have the sales promotion agent goes off, does some thinking, and works out, okay, what's the best upsell for this customer? And then they come back sometime later, and then it sort of bumps onto the message. We had
Mhm.
previously thought of a message as just it's done and it stays done, and that's the end of it. It's immutable. But now we're
Mhm.
talking about having a button panel that gets sort of inserted underneath a little bit later, but we can also have additional messages come in from other agents, like the sales agent, that's like, hey, while you've got them, ask them
Mm.
about this or tell them about this promotion or something like that, right? So there's just like how this response is growing, our response can grow too, where it can be spliced together from multiple agents who have done different tasks but were allowed to focus on a particular area like the upsell or the troubleshooting or the loyalty
Mhm.
program or the respect for elders thing or any
Mhm.
number of aspects that you want. Those come in later.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's not just long thread cursive based where it's turn based, but it's long thread where it's like you're in a chat room and
It's
you've
like
got
async promises kind of.
yeah, like
I know.
you're in a Slack channel and you're like, hey, I got this customer, what do I do? And then like the accounting guy comes in and goes, oh, they're overdue, or the loyalty,
Yeah.
the nostalgia bot comes in and says, this is one of our founding customers. Greet them with, you know, the utmost respect because they've been here for 15 years. And then
Yeah.
the sales promoter goes, new promotion going right now. Oh, actually, not relevant to this person. Never mind. Like
Yeah.
the channel erupts as opposed to the single thread.
Yes, and that would be separate from the long thread, because otherwise it's going to get a whole bunch of stuff. Would it be separate from the long thread?
I think it is because those agents they're decorating. They're not actually the long thread is your control line, and
Mm-hmm.
these other agents are popping up decorations. You can choose to talk about them or relate to them, but primarily you're going to keep going with your task in the long thread. These decorations occur because they're like helpful hints that come along a little
Hmm.
bit later.
Hmm. I quite like that. So their advice.
Advice, yeah, advice, and it could be, maybe it's a stateboard function. I don't know. Maybe it's a.
Well, similar to your search. Say if you got advice from sales, nostalgia bots, or whatever, and you perhaps click on that a bit like the search that you were looking for, and then that would put it into the long thread, and then it would be aware. So you could be giving advice, but you don't need to heed advice. By clicking on the advice, it goes into
Yeah,
the long thread.
you don't need to heed advice. So one of the ways that this can be presented is with a snack bar, which is like where is it?
What's a snack bar?
Uh,
Yes.
these things sort of pop up and then fade away.
Never
Um,
seen this. Pop up and fade away.
see down the bottom there. They sort of pop up and then they go away. Like they can be like notifications. So
Hmm.
like the sales,
Uh,
no,
yeah.
no, you don't like
No,
that. Eh?
I hate that because I get it on my Mac all the time. Something
Yeah,
really
right.
interesting comes in the top right hand corner, and then you're doing something. It's like, oh, you switch. and you read it, and it's like, that's really interesting, and then it goes away, and it's like, now I've got to hunt and peck for it.
Right.
Um,
Okay. All right. Fine. That's fine. Whatever. It doesn't have to be. But
I'm not a fan of these. You got 5 seconds to decide whether this is really interesting.
yeah,
And click
right.
on the.
That's
It's
actually
like,
kind of annoying. Yeah. Okay. All right. But so there's some. We might just sort of bump it in, bump the message up, or put it in the state board or something. But I feel like
yeah.
there's a room for these extra bots that give you extra information that isn't mainline. It's not in long. It's not the
Well,
long
that's the
thread
same as
conversation.
producing a map, isn't it? It's just giving additional information. You're not,
Yeah.
or
Nearby things. You
right.
know, like respect for this person. I've been a customer for 15 years. They've paid a total of $15,000 to the company over this time. You know,
Yeah.
be bloody nice to them. Thank them for their continued loyalty. You know, like
Yeah.
be a nice person.
Their cat is called Ginger, and their daughter's called Emily.
Right.
And then you can, suddenly think that, oh, you've remembered me, because last time I called was like 6 months ago.
I know. And then it's like you feel awesome as a custom agent because you're like, yes, we care about our loyal customers, or we actually pay most attention to the people that hardly ever call. So thank you. You know, like,
Yeah. But also, interesting enough, you could do the same thing inside of the bot itself, but it's not always appropriate. It's like,
no,
I'm phoning because my cat's died. And it's like, a bot would go, I'm really sorry about that. How is your cat doing? It's like,
right. You're like, shut up. Just shut up. Shut up. I never want to work with you again. Yeah. So anyway, that's another side issue there.
Okay. Yeah.
I sent you a list of the deployments that I've been keeping track of.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
that's useful.
Yeah.
Where we need to get to though is
how do I get a local set up in order to fuck around with them?
what?
So, for example, oh, by the way, you put it as long threat, which is a bit more.
Yeah, I
sensitive
know.
than long threat.
I misspelled it and it sounded cooler.
So what I was wanting to do is to mess around with them on a local server. What do you use? As your
Why?
generic
Why?
IME?
Why?
Just because I can fuck around with them. As opposed
Fuck
to
around
going,
how? Like, what are you trying to do?
Just use it.
What do you mean use it? Why can't you just use it in the format I gave it to you in? What are you trying to do?
Well, okay, fair enough. I can just go to the web on each.
No,
it
like
was,
what's
long thread,
what's the issue? Like this is long thread. Oh fuck. Oh, I'm so sorry. I sent you to the wrong. That's not the UI. My bad. That's supposed to be this. Is that why you were asking?
Yes.
I'm sorry. That's absolutely my mistake.
All right, okay. Cool.
I was intending these to be used by you. That's not supposed to be a private
right, okay.
URL.
Well,
I typed it wrong.
Yeah, no worries.
It's actually this one. Oh, yeah. I'll send it over. But my bad. Sorry. Is that all you needed? Like that's all you wanted?
Yeah.
Just to be able to use it, right?
Yeah, because you value when find ways to break it.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is This is not as stable. It's just what I've done is I've frozen all these ones, so nothing's changing. So no one can complain that it's down or up or whatever because it's always on. But this one, this is the main branch being deployed. I work in the dev branch or the next branch, and then I merge into main whenever I think it's stable enough. So it's sort of stable, but it can still have issues, and I often need to wipe the database because I changed the format of something. So that's how that's all working.
That's fine. So the frozen ones, there's no database wiping anticipated.
No.
Long threat.
No touchy. The long threat is The
It's
long
the
threat is
up and
gonna,
down like a filler's album. Yeah,
yeah, pretty much. But it should be always up. Like it should be always stable. It just may lose your data sometimes. But I'm working on making that less of a thing.
it's not a problem. I won't tell. Yeah, I won't
You're welcome
offer
to share it.
for
You're
anyone.
welcome to share it. I don't think you should ever not share it. If
Yeah, okay.
people want to
Okay.
know, people want to play, fine. But they're like, the fresher it is, the nastier it is. So
Yeah,
be prepared. I think we
yeah.
should also take a look at these dates that are coming out. Like it's been, June,
Next
um,
month.
and then about 3 weeks, and now 10 days, and now 2 days. Like
Mm,
the rates going up.
mm,
Um, so the
interesting.
big in between here, all the pain is like the big chunky features that had to be rolled out to enable the next iteration, but
Yeah.
they're quickly being closed. So,
Excellent.
so that's good. And the last piece of news I had for you was that fine tuning is now available for
I
4.0
saw that for
Mini.
Mini. Yeah. I
So
mean, that was inevitably going to happen, but I'm a big fan of Mini.
I love Mini. I
Um,
think it's the coolest model I've ever seen because it's so
yeah,
cheap, so fast, and still good.
yeah.
And if you
And
can,
I've been running all the previous traceabilities through Mini, and it's like
what's
can't
it?
really tell the
What's the
difference.
difference between 4.0? Like I can't really tell.
It's difficult. I don't know why it's Mini.
I think it
Maybe
just has stripped parameters. It might have less
parameters.
languages, but it may have less general knowledge. But I don't know. I can't detect what the problem is.
I can't see the difference between them for our use cases. Can't see any difference between them.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe there are some nuances. I've not run, I've not seen any of the benchmarks for you can pass the bar exam and all that kind of
Mm,
thing, but we don't really care
yeah,
about
don't
that.
know.
The stuff
No, I
we're
don't
doing,
care
it's
either.
like, okay, so you provide something that's faster, cheaper, and identical to your previous, more expensive and slower model. Thanks very
It's
much. That's great.
insane.
We'll
60
do that.
cents for a million tokens is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's it for me then. I just was very anxious to share this with you because this is a huge deal for us. Is like
Yeah. Well,
meeting users.
this is a really juicy one, so I'll get onto this today.
Yep.
Now, the thing I was thinking about the other day, or yesterday, around the CRM was um, how to store zones in such a way that they can be inferenced through NL. And it seems really clunky to go out to Google Maps and so on.
Right.
So, looking at um, what's the kind of, when ERDs and mermaids, everything seems to work and really fast.
Mm.
I'm thinking there should be something to do with geo that is similar, and I suspect it's something to uh, taking addresses. So when an address is created, creating a lat long, and then putting that into a simple text-based where there's a polygon around a zone, something along that. So I don't have a solution yet, but I'm just mentioning that that's one thing I've been thinking about. How do you get a really fast NL interpreter of something that's actually a geo map? So you can ask things of Google Maps, of course,
Mm.
but you can't ask it saying, well, you can't give it business rules. So you can,
What do you want to
without
ask?
quite, yeah, for example, duty manager puts it in a new location and that crosses over a zone and that actually breaks a business rule. And it's quite a long prompt or business rule in order to make sure that doesn't
No,
happen.
no, because you just simply you give it a function call that allows it that can do something like which zone is this in, um, and it just makes the function call, gets back the answer, and then goes from there. It doesn't need to think about a map like we do. It just needs to know is it in zone or out of zone. That's
Well,
it.
that's exactly what I'm thinking, and there's various algorithms of that, but
I've
there's
already got that. There's a point and polygon algorithms. I've already got an optimized version of that we can just call. Yeah.
fantastic. All right, I'll drop that. Yeah, that's something I was looking at because it's how do we say if it's in the zone? Because we just assumed The other thing is optimizing routes. I have no idea whether the Redlet guys want to think about being offered a more optimized route. Given
We don't want to deal with that. That's an ugly, ugly thing. That's not the kind of AI that we're about.
Oh, it's just juicy though.
That's not an NL problem, buddy. That's not an NL problem.
Okay. I've been wanting to do
Our problem is huge. Our problem is this interface, getting this interface up and getting it deployed in these guys, and then that's where we want to get to.
So just so I'm clear, for the zones in the geo, you've got an optimized thing that I can prompt it saying, if when you add a route as a business zone, when you add a route, make sure it's in the same zone and make sure that the record is updated. You know.
Right. Oh, okay. So you're at that point then. Yeah. Okay. I don't know how to. I probably won't be able to get that to you this week, but maybe next week. I'll be able to give you.
This is more important, but I was just thinking because I've kind of run out of bits to do on the base.
Oh right.
Shit.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Not anymore. So
yeah, the buttons is hard.
yeah.
And
then
like
you're just going over again. It's like, yeah, okay.
So once we have the buttons, then what I expect to do is either tomorrow or the next day I'll have long threading working, and when we have long threading, then it's time to make the actual running system at that point.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
Okay. All right. Sweet. Well, nice. I'll leave you to it. Thank you. That
juicy peach that you just handed me.
Juicy peach.
All right. See you tomorrow morning.
Okay.